And with that, Toy Story 5 is less than 24 hours away. And to prepare for it, I've been rewatching the entire Toy Story franchise and reviewing it on this channel. We are currently on Toy Story 4. Let's talk about it. Now, it's no secret that this film is, of course, controversial because everyone agrees that it should have ended at Toy Story 3, which makes perfect sense because Toy Story 3 was the perfect ending to that original trilogy. But they decided to continue on to the fourth film. Now, how do I feel about the fourth film overall? Let's talk about it. For starters, I feel like this movie does such a great job at just making this beautiful F-log. It ties a really nice bow because you have those first three movies being about Andy and about kids growing up overall, and then you get Toy Story 4 just adding that extra layer of bow on top and really wrapping up Woody's character. Because Toy Story 4, what I like most about it is that it focuses on Woody. It finishes off Woody's character arc, which makes sense because he is the main character of this franchise. So of course we gotta tie up his character arc in some way, shape, or form, and I feel like this movie was able to do justice to Woody as a character and fully make his character end off in a perfect way. And to me, Toy Story 4 is still able to capture the same magic that the Toy Story franchise is still able to bring. What I love most about those first three movies are still in Toy Story 4. The magic is never taken away. Pixar just knows how to put the same magic into every single Pixar movie, and yet it still stays the same to some extent in Toy Story 4. And overall, I feel like this movie plays it really smartly with overall how the story plays and the concept that it has. Especially for the arc that Woody goes through in this movie alone and the themes that this movie is trying to tell. Because of course, you're following up Toy Story 3, and of course the theme of that story still holds an impact to this day. The theme of letting go and with that phenomenal ending that Toy Story 3 held up. Toy Story 4 has the theme of having a purpose. When your life is over, your life still has a purpose to it, even if you think you have achieved everything you can. And that is what I love most about what they do with the character of Woody in Toy Story 4, only because to make his theme and character arc all about the purpose of what he has left in his life. And that to me is the saving grace of this movie because I feel like the movie just executes it so well, especially since I was playing it throughout the entire story and setting it up throughout the entire story. So when that theme does pay off when it needs to pay off, it truly hits and truly makes Woody's character shine even more, especially for this F-log. And of course, as a Toy Story film, there's always going to be new characters installed in these type of movies. And Toy Story 4 is no different because the new cast of characters that are introduced are just a blast to watch on screen. They always know how to make you smile, they always know how to make you laugh, and just these new installments with Forky, with Duke Kaboom, even with Bo Peep returning with Ducky and Bunny, all of these different characters are just a blast to watch on screen, and just add for a nice installment in the Toy Story franchise. And of course, the animation has only gotten better throughout the years, but Toy Story 4 to me is where it shines the most because a lot of it just looks hyper-realistic, that just looks beautiful to look at. Now, from the trailers for Toy Story 5, it seems like the animation is a step up because it looks even more realistic, but to me, even in Toy Story 4, the animation still looks beautiful. And say what you want about the ending, I'm about to rant about it, but the ending, it works. I feel like I mentioned the theme of the story being about purpose. And of course, for the F-log of Woody's character, I feel like the ending overall works. I'm about to say a few more things about it, but overall, on paper, the ending works and still gets you crying at the end of the day. And I'm gonna say this right now, I'm about to rant about a lot of problems that I have with this film, but overall, I am still going to give it a positive rating because at the end of the day, the problems that I have with this film are more come across as nitpicks because the overall theme of the story and the overall story that the story is going for, and the way they handle Woody's character are all bigger pros to me than everything I'm about to mention in my negative section, is that this movie just has a lot more nitpicks than the first three Toy Story films. The first three Toy Story films are all the way up here in some of my favorite movies of all time, while Toy Story 4, there is a significant gap in between, but that does not mean Toy Story 4 is a bad movie to me. I just have a lot more nitpicks that are just a lot more frustrating of what they do, but a lot of it does not take away my enjoyment from the film. Some elements do. I would have rewritten a lot of other elements, but what I'm about to rant about is not too serious to me. Now for starters, one of my biggest gripes about this movie is what they do with Buzz. They make Buzz a complete idiot in this film, making him listen to his inner voice throughout the entire film. It's just so frustrating. Now, with that said though, it's really only 3 scenes that is truly big out of character because Buzz would not truly do that in the first 3 films. Maybe you can change it to some extent that he would, but the way they handle it in Toy Story 4 just makes him come across as dumb. But I do feel like a lot of that is saved from the other stuff they make Buzz do because Buzz is still in character. Besides for making him a complete idiot in this film, he is still in character. It's just that one stuff that I just do not find funny because it's just not who Buzz is as a character. Now, of course, those first 3 Toy Story movies are known for its storytelling and its writing, and of course being top-tier best movies of all time. Toy Story 4, although I did rave about the themes of this film, the storytelling is just not quite the same as the first 3 movies, and you can just feel when watching this movie is the gap between the first 3 films and 4, because the storytelling and the writing is just not on the same level as it was back in Pixar's prime age. Of course, the theme is still here shown in this film, but other than that, the storytelling throughout the entire film, there are just moments that try to sneak in that theme in there, and it just doesn't have the same impact as it did in the past. And of course, the Toy Story movies are known for being absolutely hilarious, especially those first 2 films and even the third one. Toy Story 4, you can tell that they are trying to make you laugh, they are trying to put jokes in here, but a lot of these jokes, in the past even, I just used to roll my eyes at. I hated the jokes in this film for the most part. There are a few good ones still, especially from the new characters, but overall, this film is just not as funny as those first 3 films. Sure, first time watching it, you may chuckle here and there, but the more and more you watch it, the more annoying these jokes get. Watching it now, I do like a few of them, but overall, they just feel more forced than the first 3 films did. Now, one of the main things about this film is the ending and the theme that Woody goes on and trying to find a purpose in life when your thing has been fulfilled. Sure, that's great, but in order to do that, they had to rewrite around a few things that this franchise has already established, such as Bonnie loving Woody. Toy Story 3, and even in some of the spin-off shorts, such as Toy Story of Terror and Toy Story That Time Forgotten, clearly shows that Woody is Bonnie's favorite toy. Toy Story 4, on the other hand, completely rewrites that. She just doesn't care for Woody anymore, and the time span between Toy Story 3 to Toy Story 4 has only been about a year. It hasn't been too much. I don't fully 100% buy that Bonnie just doesn't care for Woody anymore. In fact, Jessie is her new favorite toy, and looking back at Toy Story of Terror, Toy Story That Time Forgotten, more specifically Toy Story That Time Forgotten, when she was told to bring toys to the playdate that she had in that short, she did not pick Jessie. She left Jessie at the house and brought Woody instead, because Woody was her favorite toy. And even in Toy Story of Terror, sure, the main plot is about Jessie, but she still mainly cares for Woody. Meaning that it was even less than a year in time span between That Time Forgotten and Toy Story 4 to fully make her just not care for Woody the same way anymore. Sure, kids grow out of things, but the way they handled her just completely forgetting Woody like that doesn't line up the same, especially the fact that we see her playing with Woody in the movie in the RV sequence. It just doesn't line up, and it's just something you kind of just have to forget about for the sake of making the theme work in this movie, which is kind of frustrating because Pixar is not normally that, but a few things like this is what's bringing back my enjoyment for this film. The ending, like I said, on paper completely works, and overall, they could have nailed it in execution, but the main thing bringing it back for me is that I talked about, if you watched my past reviews of the previous Toy Story films and even some of the short films, I have countlessly talked about because I was building up to this moment where these characters are iconic. Every single side character. When it comes to Woody, when it comes to Slinky, when it comes to any other of these side characters, they are all iconic because Pixar just made all these characters iconic in their own way. That's why they stand out so much. That's why Toy Story 3 also has the big emotional landing that it has because you care for every single one of these characters. With that said though, Toy Story 4 just completely forgets all that and makes every single one of these characters barely speak at all in the film. Jessie barely speaks, and she is one of the main characters of this franchise. That's why part of me is extremely glad that she is getting the main show in Toy Story 5, because in Toy Story 4, they did her absolutely dirty. And it's not just Jessie. every single side character, even for the actors that are still alive, did not get their chance to shine. Because this film just completely sidelined them, that when we do get to the ending, it could have been more impactful if we stayed with these iconic characters throughout the entire film's runtime instead of just focusing on these new characters. Sure, I like the new characters, but we can only focus on them for so long, and especially when we have an ending like this that only works when we truly have focus on these characters throughout the entire film. I feel that ending would have been a lot more impactful if we focused on all of these characters throughout the entire film, like Toy Story 3 did. We spent the entire film with all these characters together. Toy Story 2 even, for Buzz storyline, we spent all these characters together that you started to care for them, and it was funny watching them on screen. Since you don't get that, this film's not as funny, because all these characters are not together. They barely talk to each other in this entire film. They are treated more as extras in this film than they are main characters or even side characters. They're treated as extras, which is not what you want under any circumstance. And it's looking like Toy Story 5 is not going to do this, which I absolutely love because we need to focus on these side characters. That is one of my biggest gripes about this movie, is that you can't have a Toy Story film without all these characters together, and this movie completely sidelined them, that when we get to the ending, like I said, on paper, it works. But the entire movie needed to have time with all these characters together, so when they say their final goodbye to Woody, you spent the entire film with them. It's not you reliving your emotions from the past movies, it's you reliving your emotions from this movie, but we just don't get that because they sidelined them all too much. And since you also have them barely talk in this film, I feel like we just wanted more dialogue in that ending to make it 10 times more impactful. Granted though, when Woody hugs Buzz, that is beautiful. I love that moment. One of my favorite parts of this entire film. With that said though, something that extremely bugs me is Forky gets the last hug from Woody, not Buzz. You have this beautiful moment between Woody and Buzz hugging each other for the last time. Well, so and so, because he's returning in Toy Story 5. But this movie had such a beautiful sequence. Woody hugs Buzz for the last time, and then they make Forky get the last hug. Why is Forky getting the last hug? He was introduced in this movie. He did not have the same emotional payoff as Woody hugging Buzz for the last time. Woody hugging Forky should not have been the last hug. And this beautiful sequence is just interrupted by a stupid joke once again, that you're just ruining that emotional ending because you're just all of a sudden rushing to the end of it. Woody and Buzz should have been the final hug. Forky being the last hug is extremely frustrating, and it really made me mad. But anyways, that was my rant for Toy Story 4 for all the stuff I didn't like. But yet again, I like this film. It's still a Toy Story film at the end of the day. So overall, Toy Story 4 still delivers on a Toy Story movie. It has the same magic that the first three films brought, while serving as a great epilogue for Woody as a character, serving a very important theme. With that said though, this is also the first Toy Story film where I actually truly have problems with it, and it extremely drops off from the first three movies in storytelling, themes, and we're abandoning the original characters that when we get to the ending, it just doesn't have the same impact as it should. Toy Story 4 is a great film, and I love watching it, but there are a handful of things that just stay in its way from being even better. And it should definitely be way better than it actually is. Anyways, if you like this video, maybe these ones on the sounds to you too, like, subscribe, see you guys next time. Goodbye.